Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey team, it's Debbie, the host of the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, and today I am going to dive into ketones with Latt Mansor on their Ketone IQ from H.V.M.N. And after the show, I realized I had so many other questions we didn't get to because there's a lot to dive into when we're talking about taking ketones for the athlete. And is it beneficial? When should we use it? Why should we use them? And is it cheating? Is there different ways we can perform our best without taking ketones by just fasting and eating our carbs at specific times of the day and so much more? So I asked Latt to answer some of my questions. I'm just going to add that in our intro today. Also, warning, the recording on my side was horrible because I was in a hotel room in Kona as I went to go volunteer running the Latt Olympic distance triathlon in Waikoloa outside of Kona for the race expo. And then Neil and I helped at the finish line setting up all the flower decorations at Latt. And then we ended up being there to the very end, watching the last finisher, handing out medals and kind of monitoring the finish line area as we needed to help and guide the high school volunteers. So I tell you, if you have done races, you must appreciate the volunteers because it was a long day and we had to be there at 5 a.m. And by the time we were done, it was 2 p.m, 2:30. And we were exhausted and we just were standing around, but very fun. I hope you guys all want to do Olympic distance triathlon or a relay in 2023. That sounds so crazy when you say what year it is now, but in 2023, Latt will be at the end of March. And so the registration opens this July 2022 for next year's race. So sign up and join me. I will be in charge of the race expo again and probably end up helping the finish line if I don't do the race myself. So tempting, I may race again, but I need all new gear. I feel like all my stuff's so old as I haven't raced for the last few years. And I am tempted to do some triathlons here in San Diego now that things are starting back up. And there's lots of Olympic distance and sprint distance races all summer. And of course, Latt is such a happy race. So anyways, the point of that is I was in Kona when I recorded with Latt and he wasn't able to reschedule because I stayed a couple of extra days there to work from there. Since now we work remote, we can be anywhere in the world, right? So I still podcasted with Latt, but I had my headphones on that I travel with and they don't sound so great. So I apologize for my sound. I tried to mute myself as much as I could. And I just wanted to give you a little more information on the ketones and some extra questions I had for Latt. All right, so let's start with some definitions first, because I think it's good to know a little bit more about ketones, exogenous ketones, before we start diving into some of the research Latt has done. So Ketone IQ by H.V.M.N is a drinkable ketone designed to take daily to help support mental clarity, athletic performance, and metabolic health. This is a drinkable ketone that contains no caffeine, no sugar, just clean, natural energy to power our brain and body. So we're going to talk about just what are ketones, metabolic flexibility, the purpose and the benefits. I'm just going to be asking straight out questions. Is this cheating? Do we really need this? Is it necessary? So we'll just kind of dive into the research and find out if it's right for you or not. So we'll break it down into what my tagline is: fat loss, performance, and longevity, but also dive more specifically into performance gains with recovery, sleep, and then dive into fasting and fasting exercise and stacking as my new term I'm finding I say a lot is biohacking stack. So hacking your stacks for you as an individual are going to be different. So we want to be able to figure out what different supplements we can take together. And as I would say, less is more, and then being more efficient and being able to absorb anything we take. And then we want to test if it works or not. So using your Aura or Whoop score will help kind of track things, as well as your heart rate variability score can tell you some information. You're also going to be able to feel maybe lower heart rate and speed might be improved in looking at your Garmin or whatever you use for working out. Most of you use Garmin. So Ketone IQ, you can save 10% off with our code for the podcast is low carb athlete. One word, low carb athlete. So why do we want ketones? Well, sustained energy. Ketone IQ elevates your blood ketone levels to the optimal range for a period of 3 hours. It offers clean energy. Ketone IQ delivers energy without a sugar crash or insulin spike. Metabolic Boost. Ketone IQ elevates your ketone levels so your body runs on ketones instead of sugar. So that's what we'll talk about, that dual fuel, delivering better energy and sharper focus. Effective and safe. Ketone IQ is FDA approved and compliant with the World Anti-Doping Agency. Now, who is Latt? Latt is Dr. Latt Mansor, is the research lead at H.V.M.N. and oversees the research efforts and collaborations of the company with universities and research institutions. He's currently in charge, the head investigator of the Phase II award. I won't say all the words, SOCOM STTR award held by H.V.M.N. Latt holds a degree from University of Oxford, and focuses his research on metabolism of type 2 diabetic, and all sorts of more information I'll add in the show notes. So I want to explain a couple other things we didn't get to in the recording today. So follow-up questions. What is leaky gut, and how I think a lot of us have leaky gut and it's undetected unless you do some lab testing that I do with my clients. And I was curious about how taking ketones can help us with leaky gut at all, because leaky gut can lead to leaky brain. So if we heal and seal the gut, how can we help heal and seal the blood-brain barrier, BBB? So leaky gut, ketogenic diet has shown to help with leaky gut via decreasing inflammation in the gut microbiome. Latt would agree the same effect with Ketone IQ, and we deliberately commercialize the Ketone IQ for the taste and the affordability, because it doesn't taste that bad actually, so that people can have it throughout the day, stay in an elevated ketone state without having to adhere to a strict ketogenic diet that not everyone's able to do. So it gives you those ketones without having to do the super low carbs. And I think for athletes, this is me talking, I think there's variability or variations in how many carbs we can tolerate. If you go back and listen to my episode with Rob Wolf and talk to Ben Azadi, and if you talk to Dr. Mindy, and you talk to Dr. Anna Kabeka, Cynthia Thurlow, all this information we're hearing out there, as I keep talking every episode this year, is not geared to the active athlete. The information out there for how many carbs you can take and how many hours to fast and more information, I feel is geared towards the individual with more metabolic diseases and metabolic chaos. Now, if we are active and exercising once or more a day, and if we're cycling female that's already lean, we need to really adjust all these recommendations. So hopefully you've been listening every week to all these episodes to learn more how to apply a low carb athlete lifestyle to you, and take the information we hear out there about the benefits of fasting, benefits of keto, and strategic carb timing is really essential for the athlete, the endurance athlete doing lots of cardio, and that can be chronic cardio, that can be stress. So I really stress that we need to do more strength training and less long distance cardio as we age. But moving on, longevity is a goal of mine. As I turn 50, I'm all about improving the aging process. And so my goal is to live my best life, the second half of my life, and work on whatever I can do to make myself healthier as I get older. So longevity is an important part. And most studies, Latt shared with me that the studies on longevity have been mostly in animal models, but we know for sure as we age, our metabolism and brain health deteriorate and causes decreased quality of life. The risk of diabetes, for example, increases with age. Ketones have been known to improve glycemic response in healthy and diabetic individuals, in addition to helping them rely less on sugar for energy, the key part, I think, of being in ketosis or taking ketones. In addition, the anti-inflammatory properties of ketones also help mitigate the risk of most chronic diseases caused by chronic inflammation. In terms of brain health, ketones have been shown to decrease brain network stabilization associated with aging, and the benefits of ketones in the brain health are well established, especially with the neurodegenerative diseases, is due to energy deficiency or impaired glucose metabolism. This is due to the fact that ketones can pass the BBB, the blood-brain barrier, to produce ATP for the brain and overcome the energy deficiency. All right, so what is metabolic flexibility? Let's review that. So Latt said, in a therapeutic sense, metabolic flexibility refers to the ability to swap substrates as carbs to fat, vice versa, when needed in certain conditions, such as a low oxygen environment. In performance perspective, we often use the term metabolic flexibility when describing the extra tank of fuel that exogenous ketones can provide in the addition to the carb and fat storage in our bodies. This way, our body is an efficient machine, and we have the option to choose between these substrates. Utilize the most efficient ones first and maintain the storage of the others to provide energy for a prolonged workout period. And so Latt explains that a little bit more in the show today. And I know if you go back to my podcast archives, look up Debbie Potts and Peter Defty, we talked a lot about OFM, his optimal fat metabolism program, VESPA, and strategic carb timing. Because once you are a fat adapted athlete, that can take 4 to 6 weeks or longer, depending on your history of metabolic damage. And once you are able to burn fat as your main fuel source, you can switch to burn carbs at backup fuel tank when you need to have a surge in a race, or you have a big hill climb, or you're racing to the finish line and you're doing a half marathon or marathon, for example, and you want to pick up the pace the last 5K. So these ketones can help you. Now, I'm trying to talk them into H.V.M.N, how to make little packets of the Ketone IQ so we can put them in our back pocket, because right now it comes in a bottle and you're not going to have that in your back pocket when you're riding or on a long trail run or hike. So I know this company I've worked with their olive oil, they have these really good travel packs. So hopefully they can come out with ketones in a travel pack for us to have on our bike. So go back and look at my past episodes with Peter Defty, and also I talked to Rob Wolf earlier this year on his book, Wired to Eat, and taking the carb tolerance test. A few years ago, I interviewed PNOE, P-N-O-E, the metabolic efficiency testing package or equipment that you can do to test your fat metabolism at rest and during exercise. And I used to do this starting way back when in 2005, and did it for many years on and off with clients, athletes, at rest and during their run and bike ride, and determining their fat burning ranges and where their metabolic crossover point is, where they switch from fat to carbs, and then where is that anaerobic threshold in there. So I can create a program based on that data collected. But now I actually just purchased the PNOE metabolic testing that I'll do down here in North San Diego, and perhaps take it with me to conferences to test on people, that I will implement that data into my nutritional therapy assessment I do with clients, as a nutritional therapy practitioner and as an FDN practitioner, I investigate a little bit deeper, ordering functional labs for clients, as well as looking at their MyDNA or DNA Fit data and looking at their metabolic typing and exercise program and all that. So I'm really excited to announce this summer that I will be doing this metabolic testing and implementing it into my packages. So it'll be resting metabolism test or exercise, or a combination of resting and exercise plus coaching sessions with that. Or my more higher end package is a 6-month or longer training program that's full-time, working on nutrition and exercise and all the elements of the holistic method, those lifestyle habits. But taking this data in, and then if people are local, I can test them monthly on their ability to burn fat, and then tracking that with their Oura Ring and all sorts of things that we can do. And then I'm excited to take what your fuel plan is and then like take H.V.M.N. IQ before your resting test and see what your results are. And then take your fuel plan for a race and put you on the treadmill or have you run outside and see what that does to your ability to burn fat as your main fuel. So there's so much we can do. I'm so excited to dive into this kind of hacking, stacking. So let's go a little bit deeper with Latt. And again, apologize for the sound, just to mute my questions or my comments when I talk because it's really loud. So enjoy the show. Let me know your questions and be sure to use our code for a discount, Low Carb Athlete, which I'm trying to get for every company product I love and interview. Okay, enjoy and let me know your questions. Head to the YouTube channel to watch the video.
All right, guys, I get to talk to Latt Mansor. Is that how you say your last name, Matt?
Latt Mansor.
Latt Mansor. Sounds like, I feel like I should say it French. Mansor.
Mansor.
Anyways, we're going to talk about ketones today, and Latt works for H.V.M.N. And what does that stand for, H.V.M.N.?
That stands for Health via Modern Nutrition.
Great, makes sense. And we're going to talk specifically about ketones and the new ketone research that you guys have been doing, ton of research. And we're going to apply all this information we are getting through your research and your experiences on how it impacts the athlete, because we hear for the low carb keto athlete, how to use ketones, but also I want to talk about fat loss and performance specifically before, during, and after. And of course, my big area of focus is the aging athlete, so longevity. So we'll tie in all this stuff. We are going to have lots of extra information we don't get to because I made a really long list of questions and I try to just do 3. And I will put what we can in the show notes and additional research articles that we talk about, and anything else you guys that are listening want to know more, just put it in the comments. We're on the Low Carb Athlete YouTube channel and podcast audio version, of course. So let's get started with what are ketones and why do we want to possibly take, when and why and how, we'll get to exogenous ketones.
Okay, so to start off with, ketones are essentially substrates similar to carbs or proteins or fats. So your body uses up ketones, metabolizes it, and creates energy out of it. So in a state where we have very low glycogen stores, whether it's because we are on a ketogenic diet or if we are fasting, our body will start breaking down fats to form ketones in the liver. Now, these ketones will then be circulated around the body, go to different organs, the heart, the brain, that needs energy functioning and provide the energy that it needs, because we are low on carbs, we are low on glycogen, we're low on glucose. So it needs some substrate somewhere. And this is especially important here because the fats, while fats can provide energy as well, it cannot reach the brain because of the blood-brain barrier, whereas ketones can because it's much smaller in size. So if we are fasted, we are on a ketogenic diet, the brain will utilize the ketones very, very efficiently. So that's endogenous ketones, where we create our own ketones. So that's endogenous ketones that is being created from restrictive diets, such as ketogenic diet, very low carbs, or fasting. And then what we're going to talk about today is exogenous ketones, like as you said earlier, Debbie. An exogenous ketone is essentially a form of drinkable ketones that you can, drinkable or eatable ketones that you can take in, and it will elevate your blood ketone levels regardless or independent of your diet. So you can still have glycogen and carbs in your body, but you will have elevated ketones because you're taking in exogenous ketones. And therefore, you will get all the benefits that comes with having ketones in your body.
So that kind of sounds like you're cheating, though.
I mean, it's part of biohacking. I mean, it depends on your goal. For example, I think, let me jump straight to performance, for example, like athletes. It's sort of cheating by having an extra tank of fuel, right? You have your carbs, you have your fats, but then now you're introducing an extra tank of fuel, which is ketones. Yeah. And that allows you to last longer or push faster or push harder. Is it cheating? I mean, could you say the same with other supplements? I mean, it's similar. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but we're not giving people, I'm just playing devil's advocate, but we're not giving them permission to eat crap, and eat whatever you want and take this, because I think that's what happened when I, 10 years ago, Prove It and all these other exogenous ketones are coming out. People are like, oh, I can drink this and, lose weight and be in ketosis, versus actually doing the work to choose the right foods that your body needs, eat based on your ancestors, and being fasting that you're going to produce ketones. Yeah. So there is a point to it. And we'll get to how it actually helps you curb your appetite, because that's the biggest thing I found when I did try that. I was like, oh, well, I'll take these. And I know it doesn't mean I'm have ketones in my body floating around because I broke down and I'm burning my own body fat. I have them floating around because I drank them, but also it curbed my appetite and I don't feel hungry, so I'm not eating. So I guess that kind of good segue to go to the first topic is fat loss and how to use it. So why don't we just kind of go with that?
Yeah, sure. I think you pointed out a very interesting point, the appetite suppression via exogenous ketones. While you are correct in that exogenous ketones do not allow your body to burn the fat temporarily, just acutely, while you have that, while your body is burning that exogenous ketone, it does extend that period of ketosis. If you're already fasting, if you're already on low carbs, you're already on ketosis, it just elevates your ketone even further to get you that benefit. And then on top of that, to complement that lifestyle, whether it's a ketogenic lifestyle or a fasting lifestyle, I personally use it for intermittent fasting. So I will have my ketones with my dinner around 8 p.m. And then I won't have to eat until lunch the next day around 1 or 2 p.m. So that gives me a good, 16 hours of fasting. And that doesn't mean that I am cheating per se, because when I measure my ketone levels in the morning, I still sit around 0.5 to 0.8. Now, is that the exogenous ketone that is still floating around? I don't think so, because we have run a pharmacokinetic study where we saw the drop of exogenous ketone after, about 6-7 hours. Our ketone IQ at rest, it will stay above 1 millimolar for around 6 hours. So, having sort of drank that at about 8 p.m. by afternoon the next day, it will definitely be used up by then. So whatever I'm measuring using the ketone meter is then my own endogenous ketone from my fasting.
Yeah, so the ketones for fat loss, because I know I can have a lot of rabbit holes to go down here. So fat loss, why would we take ketones, the H.V.M.N, Ketone IQ, to help fat loss? So we're saying we can help speed up fat loss because it'll keep us more satiated and prolong a fast. So if we're doing a fasting window of, say, 16 hours, or sometimes people want to go longer, like an OMAD or 2-3 day fast when it's appropriate for athletes. I don't think so. But you're saying we could take that, even though there are calories in it. And that's why I was listening to the podcast you guys did with Ben Greenfield yesterday again. It has calories, so 70 calories per
serving,
one serving, right? So that is technically, we go to the other rabbit hole. What is your purpose of fasting? So if your fasting is cell autophagy, that means pure just water. And then if you want to have fasting to teach your body to use your own stored body fat for fuel to help fat loss, we want to burn the fat off our body and use that for our main fuel tank, and that ties into metabolic flexibility, then we can have that extra little shot of ketones, drinking it to help promote being in ketosis naturally, but then kind of maybe just it helps curb appetite, or does it, like you're saying, if you're already naturally fasting and you're at say 1.0 ketones when you measure with Keto Mojo, and then if you take 10 milligrams as one serving, and then does that help you raise? I mean, it's not more is better is what I'm trying to get to. Because a lot of people have, I'm all less is more from my adrenal background. So less is more. So more is not better. So talk about, just summarize that. We'll move on to the performance part.
Yeah, sure. I think you pretty much got the points right. You help with appetite suppression. You prolong your fasting period. It certainly help train your body to metabolize ketones, because what they have seen in studies is that while exogenous ketones are being supplied, we saw an upregulation of enzymes and transporters related to ketone metabolism. So in that way, when you already finish using the exogenous ketone, now your exogenous ketone and your endogenous ketone is kicking in, your body is ready, able, and prepared to metabolize it, burn it and create energy and give all the good feelings that you feel in your brain when you are in ketosis.
Sorry, I'm muting myself so I don't make noise. So the GLUT, can you explain a couple of those words you said, just in case people don't know what GLUT4 transporters are? Because I know it's being thrown a lot in podcasts lately, and I don't think everyone understands.
Sure. Now GLUTs are glucose transporters, but what I meant is when exogenous ketones are being administered, we saw an increase in MCT, which is monocarboxylase transporter, which transports ketones and lactate into the cell. We also saw increase in enzymes that changes BHB, which is primarily your primary form of ketones in blood, beta hydroxybutyrate. It changes beta hydroxybutyrate into acetyl-CoA, and acetyl-CoA enters Krebs cycle, and that therefore involve in the respiration and electron transport chain and create ATP. So that cascade of events require all these intermediates and enzymes, and those enzymes are what have been observed to increase once you have a higher level of ketones in your blood.
Hold on, I mute myself again. So having the ketones, H.V.M.N, Ketone IQ for fat loss, we can use that, just take a shot of it. And what's the serving size per person if you're trying to keep satiated and keep prolong a fast, support it?
For studies, they usually weight match the dosing, but I would say for normal person, start with one dose, like 35 mils, which has about 10 grams of R1,3-butanediol in it. And that should be enough, especially if you're at rest. So depending on if you're doing activities after you take it, clearly, if you are taking in the ketones and then you're going on to an exercise, then you are essentially using up the ketones, and your ketone levels will then drop again. So if you are at rest and your ketone levels remain high up, that sort of appetite suppression mechanism will still sort of be in place.
Okay. So let's move to performance, because I think this is lots of interesting studies, and I think I want to go into brain health, of course, but performance wise is what people probably, most listeners are exercising a lot. If it's CrossFit or endurance athletes and ultras, Ironmans, why would we take ketones and when? And so what's the research and the benefits, and then like how to use them into pre-workout, during workout, post-workout, which would
Great.
be recovery.
Yeah, sure. I think so far the studies around performance have been primarily focused on endurance athletes. So cyclists, for example, we supplied to about 50 to 60% of the teams in Tour de France before. And what we have seen in studies is that it helps, especially on a high performance level, elite athletes, they manage to increase their performance by 2 to 5%, different studies, after taking in ketones. And also do note that we do not recommend replacing your current nutritional strategy, i.e. your carbs and all that, with ketones. What we're trying to say is you are adding ketones onto your normal carb intake, which is about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per hour during exercise. So that adds, like I said earlier, adds another tank of fuel, if you would, because again, if you look at metabolism and physiology, all these substrates, carbs, fats, they all have their own respective transporters and carriers to bring them into the cell, get metabolized, and create energy. Now, you can only have that many transporters active, and therefore more is not always better. So even if you chug a lot of carbs, there's only so much your body can take in, and then the rest will just float around your blood until your body is ready to take it in. Now, if you saturate your body with the substrates like glucose and fat, but then now you are adding another category whose transporters are just sitting there waiting to receive the substrate, which is ketones, you just open another door of potential source of energy. And that is what gives that sort of push and endurance and prolonged performance for these athletes. So that's sort of pre-workout use.
So would we take that? So say if you're doing, like, when is it appropriate? I would think to, like, if I'm going for a 2-hour bike ride, but maybe if I'm doing a 3, 4, 5 hour.
Yep. So I would take it half an hour to 1 hour before you start your exercise. Okay. So take 1 or 2 doses. I would recommend on the higher end 2 doses, just because you want your ketone to be high enough, especially for performance. Now that is very different to like wellness dose or like fat loss and all that. So for performance, you want to have quite significant elevation of ketones. And then if your workout, like you said, if 3, 4 hours, 5 hours, you want to top up around 90 minutes to 120 minutes, so about 1.5 to 2 hours, top it up and keep going.
So every hour and a half, take another dose.
Yeah.
So if you're on a bike ride or run or hike, what are you going to do? Have a flask in your back pocket of it?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because we had a podcast, our VP of supply chain, Chrissy, she was on this other podcast about with cyclists and talking about the practicality of bringing it together, because I assure you, you do not want to mix it together with your other drinks that you take it on the way, because it will make it taste pretty bad. But you can certainly ration it out and have little containers that you can just shot with, and we might be working on something similar to make sure that it's very practical for athletes as well. So we're looking at maybe shot size and 1 serving size, so it's easier for people to just drink it on the way.
Yeah. So remind me later. I'll send you a picture. An olive oil company that I work with, they have individual serving packets, which I wish I brought with me. I'm in Kona, Hawaii right now, and I was like, gosh, I wish I brought those travel packets. But that would be perfect, because they're like I don't know, not really cardboard, but whatever material that you could just snap off the top. But that would be perfect, because you can shove that in your back pocket. Yeah. Even if you're running. Like, I met this girl here doing Ultramans, and she is training. Ultraman is I don't know, 4 Ironmans or 3 Ironman distances. Wow. And so they do like a huge 6-mile swim one day, and then they do a 300-mile bike ride, then a like so many 100-mile run the next day. So I don't know
Sounds
exactly.
insane.
Anyways, but I was like, you need to
So
look at
one
doing
bottle is
these.
about this.
Oh yeah, so you'd
So
have to have a lot.
I personally, I would just sip on it, during the day, just.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you
when you're running or cycling, it will be, the
packets.
practical aspect of things come into play.
Okay, so staying on track on my list because I can
Yes.
ramble. The
Yeah.
performance-wise, the pre-workout, because I
Yeah.
always think a lot of it taking ketones is for brain focus and clarity. So if you've more technical sport as say golf, or maybe you're cycling like your Tour de France people, but why would an age group or someone just trying to be, lasting longer and they want to be burning fat as their primary fuel, why would they want to take ketones if they're, if they just need the extra energy, or, how does it work for performance wise? You just kind of mentioned a little bit, but let's clarify why would an athlete that's not like a Tour de France level want to take something like this?
Well, like I said, so ketone is a form of fuel. It creates energy. It provides energy. And your body will have, the glucose and the glycogen, which is carb based, and then you have the fats and all that. And ketone is just another form of macronutrient, if you would, and it provides energy for endurance. But also, you're not wrong in the sense that ketone does provide the cognitive benefit. Now, this is quite evident of what we saw in strength and high intensity athletes. So they're not going for the long run. They're not going for, that sort of endurance race, but they still felt the benefit of ketones because they felt sharper. They felt more focused. They felt more alert. We've got people using it for, MMA. We've got people using it for jiu-jitsu. They felt that they can make decisions faster and more decisively, and their sort of observational skills sort of improved, and therefore that gives them that benefit while having that short period of time where you get a burst of elevated ketones.
So the performance athlete, endurance athlete would have like dual fuel tanks going on. So they have, their fat and ketones, and they have the carb tank going on. So you're just more efficient and have more fuel to perform. And I do want to add what Ben Greenfield was talking about in the interview with you guys. What Ben says is for endurance athletes, I'll throw in hourly. He still suggests his athletes that I help coach on Ben's program, but 100 grams of carbs like Vitargo, and then the ketones 10 grams of say H.V.M.N. Then you have to figure out how to take it, and the electrolytes like LMNT or Reolite, and having that, and then extra kind of stack on that would be anything with caffeine to amplify the ketones, and then the baking soda, they're talking about the sodium bicarbonate, taking that. So is that something to do all together? Like you would do maybe a pre-workout stack for endurance with those?
You can certainly do that as pre-workout, but as I said, during the workout itself, as well as your body is burning through, a lot of protocols, they do top up certain elements of those stacks. For example, they do top up carbs, making sure that you have enough carbs per hour. You top up the ketones, and they also top up the sodium bicarbonate. Now, you have to be careful though with sodium bicarbonate because it does give some GI distress, and generally we ask the athletes to just try it without and see what sort of feelings that they're going through, and what sort of performance measurements that they're getting.
They say to just a half a teaspoon max, is what they say. So, but what the point of having sodium bicarbonate in something, and that just is a buffer to make it less acidic on your stomach?
Yes, and this came from a paper from Belgium, a study that used Ketone Ester. So Ketone Ester was essentially the version 1 of what we used to sell. So Ketone Ester is a molecule of BHB, beta hydroxybutyrate, esterified with butanediol. And then when you take it, your gut esterase would break it down. So the BHB will go into the blood, and then the butanediol will go into the liver and get converted into BHB. So that way, you get an elevated BHB. So what we have seen with ketone ester is that its ability to elevate ketones to a very high level, between 3 to 5 millimolar, it's very, very good. But then, because some studies came out like it's either neutral or just minor benefits, this group decided to add sodium bicarbonate, because what they have observed is that consistently, as you have high level of ketones of BHB in the blood, and beta hydroxybutyrate is essentially an acid, they saw a decrease in pH. So they saw an increase in acidity. So they thought maybe that's what causing the result to vary between minor improvement to neutral. So then they added sodium bicarbonate, and they managed to improve performance by 5%. So you get the ketones, benefits from the ketones, but yet not having to deal with the acidity in the blood. Another paper did show that because of the acidity, it increases the cardiorespiratory biomarkers. For example, heart rate, the gas exchange rate, because your body is trying really hard to expel the acid, expel carbon dioxide, because it needs to go back into homeostasis and be in an optimal form where you can perform. And also increased acidity has been shown to increase perceived rate of exertion. So in other words, you are feeling that you're working harder without having that actual improvement in objective measurements, but you're feeling like, oh my God, it's harder today. Like I haven't even finished 2 miles, but I'm feeling it.
That when you're more acidic.
Yeah.
So you want to find that balance between acidic to alkaline and be more in the balance in between the two. Okay, great. So performance, we've got kind of before and a little bit during what we can do. And then let's talk about recovery, because I think that's a big part of the research I was looking at is the importance of recovery for an athlete. If it's post-workout, if there's any, protocols for there, and then sleep is an essential part of recovery for an athlete. And I prioritize sleep and have all my clients work on their sleep hygiene routine. But how can we optimize recovery post-workout and while we're sleeping?
Yes. So post-workout, personally, I use it for post-workout and for recovery. I find that data much more compelling, because the study that came out that used exogenous ketones in recovery, essentially the protocol is that they give the athletes ketones plus the gold standard protein and carbs recovery drink after workout and before sleep. And they did that for 3 weeks. And 3 weeks later, they saw an improvement of 15% in work output. So we can see that the effect of recovery compounds even more than an acute use of ketones. So that is why I've been using it for recovery. Just also personally, I felt an improvement in my sleep quality if I take it closer to bed. Although some people do anecdotally reported that if they take it before sleep, they sort of have more energy and they couldn't sleep. So I think it depends on individuals, on their personal experience. But I personally love to take it sort of after my workout at night and before sleep. And in terms of molecular sort of studies that have been shown as well, it has shown to improve glycogen resynthesis. It has shown to increase leucine-mediated mTOR activation, which means if you have leucine in the protein that you're taking, it has the leucine-mediated mTOR activation, which helps protein synthesis. So that is very important to resynthesize, all the enzymes, protein hormones that you need for recovery, as well as muscle building.
So that's a big topic right there. So I've, to focus on the importance for the athlete and the aging athlete to how to repair and rebuild muscle tissue post-workout, and why we need to prioritize protein, lifting weights more, doing more strength training is what talking about as well, but having that protein, having the essential aminos and stacking, a new word, I'm going to look this up, GoDaddy. When was it called? Hack stack. I'm going to look up hack stack. So what kind of biohack stacks we can do to help post workout. So if you're having this, maybe post workout, you're going to do like a whey shake, maybe a whey powder with ice and water, but maybe throwing some electrolytes in there. Would you take the Ketone IQ and put it into something or make it taste bad, or just take a shot? You wouldn't mix
I'll
it
take a
with
shot.
Yeah.
I definitely have my protein shake, finish it and then take a shot of the ketone.
So that would be good, because I've been trying to experiment with taking like a glutamine in there or colostrum and colostrum. And, if I don't have glutamine, just take a leaky gut powder mix. And I put that with a whey as Keon whey, for example, Keon colostrum, the essential aminos, and do electrolytes. Like I get the unflavored that doesn't have stevia in it, the real light sea salt, or just sea salt, Redmond sea salt or something. Throw that all in a blender and then have your shot. So that'd be a great way to help repair and rebuild our muscles after workout. So just can you summarize again? I think it's important people learn this, because I keep hearing this more, how that works to help the mTOR cycle and muscle repair and get the leucine mediated protein. Do you know more about can you just touch on that again, just summarize it?
Yeah, sure.
Clean it up.
So the study basically, they did a muscle biopsy and looked specifically on the muscle cells when given proteins and carbs for recovery. When there is presence of ketones, of exogenous ketones, it tend to activate the leucine mediated mTOR pathway, and that pathway is what gets mTOR does many things.
Yeah.
So a lot of people get very confused about, mTOR needs to be activated or down. mTOR is the way I see it, it needs to be reactive. It doesn't really need to be like up or down at all the times, but it just needs to be reactive based on the stimulus that you give and based on the situation that you're in for the most optimal results. So in this case, for recovery, we want the activation, and we want the activation because we want protein synthesis, and we want protein synthesis for recovery. And when you have better recovery, you obviously compound the effect, and therefore you can push harder the next day. You don't have sort of fatigue or DOMS or whatnot. I think that is important for athletes. But also, some may argue, for aging purposes, we want to deactivate mTOR. We don't want that much activation of mTOR. So that's a whole different topic on its own. But in this specific case, if you have leucine and ketone at least, we know that the leucine mediated mTOR pathway will be activated and therefore help you with your recovery.
Yeah, so I think this is an important topic to keep sharing on the podcast, because we focus on the low carb athlete, obviously. And you hear all this information out in mainstream, one on keto and do 20-50 grams of carbs maximum, and fasting that you're doing these 16-hour to longer fasts.
Right.
That it's all about the AMPK pathway. And I always think of everything yin and yang, the Goldilocks effect, not too much,
Absolutely.
Not too little, the right amount, create that homeostasis, that balance, that positive outcome. And I think for athletes, we need to take all this information and dial it in for the athlete and the aging athlete. And so I think of mTOR to be balanced with the AMPK, and Rob Wolf talked a little bit about this on the episode we did with him, and how you need both. And I know Dr. Gabrielle Leon's all about the protein, and I love her information. That I think we're getting people, it's always, one end of the spectrum to the other. So now it's like, okay, don't go in to have mTORs bad. Don't have mTOR, but you want to build muscle. You want muscle as you age, and you want to repair after workouts. So this is really important for athletes. And, seeing people, I'm here in Kona, and there's a lot of overweight people, people I watch do a race, like, okay, are you guys lifting weights? Are you eating protein? Are you having the right fuel to recover and repair? Because these people don't look that good out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we, what people don't realize is that as we age, we do lose muscle mass. especially if you don't, incorporate resistance training and all of that, we have sarcopenia. And for elderly, one of the biggest cause of mortality is fall. Like, because they can't hold themselves together, or because, certain muscle groups get weaker than the others, you fall and then you break bones, and then, you damage your organs and death. So, having that sort of lifestyle, nutrition, resistance training, and the right supplements, it does help older athletes to lead a higher quality lifestyle, if you would, a higher quality sort of aging process, where you can still enjoy everything, go out, have a good, walk around the park, run around, and still feel like you're energetic and not feel like you're just breaking down.
Well, that's why I'm trying to, it's like, I'm going to do a little ebook of the hack stacks.
Yeah, hack
and
stack.
put all this information together, because it's like, all right, now we've got such great research you guys are finding with H.V.M.N, Ketone IQ, and when to take them and how, because you see them for sale. I saw them at Sprouts Market, I told you, in California, and it's so great to see this information getting out there, but I don't think people know what to do with it, how to use it. So that's why I wanted to do a podcast on it, talk about fat loss and performance. But let's go back to the sleep part to help improve our deep sleep and not get us too awake. I know, they were saying the ketones can help lower anxiety, and it actually can help improve our HRV, heart rate variability, and cognition.
Yes. So we are very excited to collaborate with University of North Georgia. At the moment, as we speak, we are running a study to look at specifically that. We are looking at the effect of Ketone IQ on relaxation and sleep for 7 days. So we'll be giving the participants ketones before they go to bed. We'll measure HRV, we'll measure the sleep quality, everything we can capture. We'll have the data. And then on the 8th day, we are going to measure cognitive and physical performance using Ketone IQ as well. So so one study, we want to capture everything, essentially, from sleep, relaxation to cognitive and physical performance. Essentially, what we are trying to do here is to replicate the effect of Ketone Ester that was more established research-wise in the past, because they have been around for much longer compared to Ketone IQ, because this is still new. So if we can establish that it doesn't matter what molecule you use, what drinks you use, as long as you can get to a certain threshold of blood ketone elevation, you should be able to see the benefit of the ketones.
So I think a lot of people we might say, hey, I can get ketones in my own body by just keeping my carb count low. And then why should I spend money on another supplement and drink it? And so it's like selling people to why and how this can help you with your fat loss, performance, and recovery and sleep, versus if I just keep my carbs down and I'm type AAA person that's going to be so strict on keeping 20 grams or 50 grams total carbs, and that I will have my own ketones. I'm showing my Keto Mojo. I'm showing 1.0 to 2, whatever, 3.0 on nutritional ketosis. So why should I take this as well?
I would say, if you already happy with that lifestyle and already achieving the ketone levels that you want, there is really no reason for you to take this. It's more of a complementary. Like, we're not trying to sell stuff that doesn't work for you or doesn't add value to you. We're trying to sell something that would actually add value to what you're trying to do. So for example, if you're already on low carbs and you're having high ketone levels, now you push yourself for endurance exercise, or you push yourself in the gym trying to lift weights, I can guarantee you, without the presence of glucose, you will feel the fatigue, especially when it comes to high intensity, fast bursts of energy that you need. You will need glucose, because glycolysis, nothing can beat glycolysis when it comes to providing fast energy. So that's when you're like, okay, maybe I should get some glucose in. But then the compromise is that with the glucose, my ketone levels drop. So how do I keep the ketone levels high? That's where Ketone IQ comes in. So when you can have that flexibility and versatility in your diet, it's when the exogenous ketone comes in. But if you are dead set on being so strict and it doesn't affect your performance whatsoever, I would say go do your thing and you are on a good track.
Well, I always laugh because I used to be so strict, and that's what I'm speaking at conferences this year. It's like I was doing, air quote, all the right things, all this information, and I caused total damage to my whole body. So, there's a certain point that are you leading down a path of what we say metabolic chaos, or are you, the word always comes to me is sustainable. Are you able to keep up this and eat this way, or are you being so strict you're denying your body of a lot of nutrients and happiness and joy? Not that you need carbs to be happy, but it is, finding new way of eating. But I think athletes, I'm finding, and this is not really to go with this show so much, but just throw this in, that a lot of athletes are being so strict that they're not realizing they are exercising, and you will need some healthy sources of carbohydrates at appropriate times. And we call that strategic carb timing, and placing those carbs in the right, Ben Greenfield always tells us, keeping that in kind of a nutritional ketosis state during the day, and then have more carbs at nighttime. Say if it's 100 to 300 grams, the more muscle you have, you can tolerate more carbs.
Exactly.
And take those in and then help optimize your sleep. So going back to the sleep, how would we kind of stack this if we're trying to experiment improving our sleep? Like I use Oura Ring. There's people, I have clients use Whoop. And we want to improve our deep sleep, REM. I want to see heart rate variability scores improve, body temperature lower, heart rate. So what have you found, the kind of the right amount, or any experiments that people can do? Because N equals 1, and we need to just experiment. And that's what biohacking is about, is that N equals 1 experiment.
I personally use for sleep especially, use the Ketone IQ together with one of our nootropics, Yawn, which has, I have it right here actually. I'll read the ingredients for you. It has magnesium glycinate, L-glycine, L-theanine, and melatonin. So that's what I use together with ketones, and that is what helps me improve my sleep quality. So I guess you can add any of those, like magnesium glycinate is pretty known to help with relaxation, L-theanine as well. Clearly, melatonin does help with sleep.
How much melatonin is in that?
That's only 1 milligram.
Okay.
It's not that many. It's not that much.
So that would be a great way to test at something as that, because those are good. Because I always hear about magnesium, of course. We use different magnesium blends as I've used Biooptimizers, and there's Jigsaw Health, and there's different ones. And then glycine, I've heard a lot of research on glycine before bed. And then, of course, melatonin. And then, so you're taking that with like 10 milligrams of the Ketone Esters, the H.V.M.N.
I usually, because I'm much heavier, so I usually do a body weight match, because me being a scientist, being all like body match with the studies, I do take 3 servings before going to bed with it.
So I guess it's like you said, some people might feel more alert, and so you want to be careful. And I always, as a practitioner, we always titrate slowly. So you want to start low, the lowest dose, see how you feel. All right, tomorrow night I was fine, it felt great, let's try the next dose up and see how I feel.
What I find though, if I have lower dose, let's say if I have 10 to 20 grams, so 1 to 2 servings, I usually get more alert. But if I have 3 servings, it usually helps with my sleep and relaxation. So that's just my personal use case experience.
So then you can stack that with the lifestyle habits. So say you're doing a biomat, or you're doing some type of, like we have Normatec boots, or maybe you do some type of relaxation, and pair that with breathing exercises and really help optimize your sleep before bed. Because I think so many people have the bright lights, and they're on their devices, and they're watching TV for hours, and they're up late at night. And I don't think athletes realize that, okay, sleep, let's get to sleep and shut everything off. So sleep is good. So if we have that as a supplement, taking, like, what do you call your sleep It's yawn. Can't forget yawn.
Yawn. Yeah, exactly. Don't forget that one.
And what about heart rate variability? I'm always interested in different ways to improve that. Have you said anything
I
on that?
haven't measured it myself personally, but we are going to measure them for the study with University of North Georgia. So hopefully we'll have some data to share in, May, June time. And, we can revisit that.
Yeah, I think I'm always about heart rate variability, especially watching it on, Oura Ring or on the Whoop, that you can really see it more often. I liked using what I used to do back in the days, wearing a Bluetooth heart rate monitor and use Sweetbeat Live for different apps and look at the LF and HF, so you can really get more specific about measuring your nervous system. So it's not just heart rate variability score that you get on an Oura Ring, but looking at the LF, low frequency and high frequency, so you can tell parasympathetic to sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so performance, we talked about that, sleep, and the next on my list was we talked about fasting, but what about if we're doing a morning workout? And there's a lot of information out there of who should do fasted workout and who shouldn't. And a lot of the studies are men and not women. So we have to always is this, same information for women? They're going to be a little different. So what have you found using ketones in a fasted state before a workout? Say I'm going to wake up, and I usually get up and go running. And would this help me? Is it necessary to take it, and why?
Again, depends on your goal. So if your fasted workout is meant to burn the, specifically for fat burning, weight loss and weight control, then maybe you don't need it. You don't need the extra calories. I have only used the ketone for sort of fasted workouts just for cardio. So I have done once or twice strength training fasted, but with ketones, Ketone IQ. So I can't really say it's fasted. So it's like just empty stomach, but with ketones. I felt that wasn't that optimal for me, because I feel weaker than I would if I was fed or had food. But in terms of cardio, it doesn't really affect much in terms of my experience. But if you are going for a long run and you are training for marathon, but you sort of also want to have that fasted benefit of burning extra fat, then I would say, yeah, go for it. Have it, go for a long run and see how you feel. Some people just literally like the feeling of being in ketosis, or have the feeling of elevated ketone first thing in the morning, and then that gets them into gear, gets them the workout done, and then they can get on with the day and be productive all day.
Yeah, that's why I like the productivity, the zone. But I was just curious, because I wonder, I don't know how you could study, research this, but if you are doing a morning workout, I'm going to go for, say, a 45-minute run.
Yeah.
Or longer. So a lot of people question, do you need to show ketones in that workout? If I'm burning fat, if I'm staying at aerobic heart rate that's fat burning, should you, if I did someone's ketone measurement in the middle of that run, is that necessary to have some ketones? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not in ketosis during my run. But I was curious, is that necessary? I mean, you're burning fat.
I wouldn't say it's necessary. I mean, the only benefit there, I would say, is just cognitive benefit. In terms of metabolic benefit, your body will have, overnight fast, your body should have some level of ketones and the fat being converted into ketones already. So your body will be sort of using whatever fuel that is in your body, whatever storage that is already in your body. So metabolically speaking, if you don't need that extra edge for a race, for example, to finish first, just for a morning race, I don't think that's necessary. But I think the cognitive benefit is what most people would enjoy, having that mental clarity.
Well, I think a lot of athletes are, again, taking everything to extreme when we hear information, and they're fasting too much and they're being afraid to eat because that's going to break my ketones and be burning fat. So they're doing these long workouts and strength training too, and they're doing it in a fasted state and not realizing when they're going back to, you said, what is your goal? If your goal is for performance gains,
Yeah.
eat something.
Yeah, correct.
And the ketone should help that, right? And
Exactly.
then you're back into that dual fuel that, I
Yes.
can eat some carbs, I can eat some good stuff, not having all the sugars, but you can still have those ketones on board to have those two fuels at the same time. So we're dual fueled. Is that same as metabolically flexible? That means you can burn fat and then switch back to carbs.
Exactly. The body is very good at just scavenging whatever it can get during exercise, and whatever that's most efficient, your body will use it first. So you just provide as many options as possible to your body, and then it will just sort itself out. So yes, for performance, for sure, you want to have the carbs and the ketones, because we have seen people bonk out with just ketones or just fasted, and they're like, oh, I don't know why I'm so tired and I can't finish my run, and you wonder why. Your body just don't have enough energy, and yes, you may have fat storage, but your body still needs time to convert that into sources that can produce energy. So in that meantime, your body will go into this fatigue state, and you accumulate all these waste waste substrates from your blood, and it needs to be expelled out via either respiration or
so I'm excited. I'm going to do some testing, because I just ordered it's called PNOE, PNOE, a metabolic testing cart, so I can measure people's metabolic efficiency, burning fat, because it's a face mask to measure oxygen, carbon dioxide, and get their RQ value at rest and while they're exercising. So I can put this little backpack on them and put them out on the road or do it on stationary equipment. But then it'd be kind of fun to add these. Ooh, that's gonna be exciting. I can okay, try it with the HVMN. We're gonna do this, or maybe add Vespa into it, and then see how they're burning fat. And then we can actually see how I could actually, this could be cool. You could measure if they're, fat on the metabolic efficiency test, but see what fuel source keeps them burning fat.
Yeah.
Because I think so many people are scared to have anything that they're going to, kind of like, I'm going to break my fast, but then it's like, oh, I'm not going to be burning fat anymore. I'm not going to be in ketosis. I'm hearing that in our Keto Endurance Facebook page
and
a lot.
I think people need to understand metabolism as a ongoing flux. It's not one way. It's not, oh, I'm just burning fat right now, or I'm just burning glucose right now, or my body is creating glucose from gluconeogenesis, therefore everything else has to shut down. It doesn't work like that. Like, your body does everything and at the entire time. So your body will be burning fat still, even if you have exogenous ketones. It may slow down or increase depending on your situation, but it will always be there. So it's manipulating the variables in order to turn it up or down. That's what's important, rather than saying a switch on and off switch. It's a tuning process of going up or down depending on your input and output.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's like you need a new word. There's metabolic flexibility, but it seems like this is a little different than metabolic flexibility, because that means to me shifting back and forth, but it's dual fueled, multi-fueled, all engines, all cylinders, all available, ready to go.
And it switches. It does switch, like you said, like, for example, Randall cycle. If you have increase in fatty acid oxidation, you get a decrease in glycolysis and glucose metabolism. That has been proven already. But what happens then is that when you have higher glucose available in your body, and then your body starts switching over the glucose, and this will be a seesaw effect. So it switches back and forth, but sometimes it happens very quickly. Sometimes it happens over a prolonged period of time. It's just really hard to say that, okay, I fasted for 16 hours. If I have 70 calories of ketones, it will stop it altogether. It's not as straightforward, as clear-cut as that. I wish it was. It would make my life much easier during my PhD, but it wasn't. So I had to learn it the hard way. And I always tell people as well, like, H.V.M.N, our company, is not a keto company. We're not on the camp that says all carbs, all glucose are bad. We are definitely not that, especially when it comes to performance and athletic performance. We do say that, do take your carbs with the ketones so that you don't bonk out halfway. And, everything, it's, as you say, moderation. You just have to have enough so that you perform optimally, but not too much that you end up being in a detrimental state.
And that's where I think it's so the N=1 experiment, people need to work with the coach or someone to help them figure out what the right amount, what dosage works for you to provide the best bang for your buck and get the best results to perform in life and sports, because it is so individual. And I think it's, everyone just kind of looks at these ingredient list and just follows and copies this recipe. It's like, no, you got to take that as a template and then tweak it and then
personalized nutrition.
That's
personalized nutrition, personalized lifestyle. Like for me personally, I eat once a day, a big meal once a day, and then at night I only have protein shake and Ketone IQ, and I'll go to bed. And my main form of training is strength training in the gym. So I don't do much endurance. I do have cardio. I put in cardio. I try to put in every like about half an hour after my lifting, and also on my rest day, I'll do an hour of fasted cardio. Now, I've been doing that for about 8 months now. I've lost about 20 pounds or more. But the thing is, I know that I'm sort of on calorie deficit, but my strength has been increasing and my muscle mass has been increasing. So people are like, how can you eat so little and still lift and not feel very tired? And as you said, it's like, it depends on my body. My body just grabs onto like storage. And if I have a little bit more, it will just become fat. Like most of the time I just put on weight and fat most of the time. So by, incorporating low carbs, sort of intermittent fasting and ketones, I managed to lose the weight, but at the same time, make progress at my strength training as well. So everyone just got to go out there and understand the body better.
Yeah, that was the last question, is on lifting weights, because I think we talked a little bit, but because I'm all about, cardio, chronic cardio is breaking you down. So we need lift more, anabolic, catabolic, balancing those two. So lastly, just touch on the last few minutes we have left to anything we forgot about, like strength training. You just said post, if I'm doing a heavy strength, say I usually lift at like a 5:30 at night and I don't eat afterwards because I go to bed at 8 o'clock.
Right.
So taking some of that would help me not, feel like, oh, am I losing that window of helping rebuild, repair muscles? But if I have some maybe essential aminos and the ketones post workout, that will help keep me at night, because I think I got in this habit of not eating anything because I'm fasting after 3 o'clock, that actually I'm missing that opportunity to get my muscles stronger.
Yes, absolutely. I would say definitely supplement your muscles with essential amino acids and all that post workout recovery nutrition together with ketones, if you would. It certainly helped me. And I think, with the studies, it definitely shown improvement in recovery. It shows improvement in biosynthesis of proteins, and it has also been shown to maintain muscle mass in cachexia, where they lose muscle mass from cancer and all that, and exogenous ketones have shown to sustain that sort of muscle mass as well. So try it out. Maybe with that nutrition as well and ketones, you may even extend your fast a little bit longer for the next day rather than thinking just the night before.
So you think pre-workout, post-strength workout versus pre-work strength workout to take the ketones? So it's going to be more effective on building muscle if you have it after or before, if you have a choice?
I prefer after. Because, I prefer after for the recovery, for sure. But in terms of before, I do take it if I know I'm going to have a heavy lift day. Let's say I have a heavy leg day. I know I'll be doing back squats, for a lot and like deadlifts right after that. I will take it before as well, because it gives me that sort of mental focus, and it really helps put me in the zone, if you would. So I'll have that with my pre-workout, caffeine, whatnot, and that helps a lot. So I'll have it before and I'll have it after. But usually the after, I'll have a higher dose because it helps me sleep as well.
Yeah, that's great experiment. So I've been trying to write all this stuff in my little notebook here, and I'll put that into a blog in the show notes. But I think it's like, I'm trying to organize all this information we hear so you can have your own little biohacker experiment book called the Stack Hack. Yeah, it's really interesting, but it's also sometimes, people get confused because you got so many different use cases, you got different doses, and some people are more particular about body weight matching it. Some people are okay, and then on top of that, there is individual variability as well, because some people metabolize it much quicker, some people don't. And as you work, as you exercise, you're burning as well. So like, it's hard to like measure your blood ketone levels, and then you're like, oh, it's not high enough. Oh, maybe I'm burning, or is it like it's going to like different parts of the muscle that it's not in the blood, it's not showing up. All sorts of variability that comes with it. But I would say the best measurement would be, your subjective feel, and then all the parameters like HRV and all the as objective as you can get, and you measure them, and then that will tell you sort of how far you can push yourself with exogenous ketones. I'm so excited to try this out when I get my metabolic testing cart. I just ordered it. I won't have it till probably June. So I'll try this out and see, because then you can see. That's why I love metabolic testing, because you can do all this stuff on people and go, okay, what did it if I
the data don't lie.
Yeah, it's so great. And then put it with, because I used to do testing way back. I mean, I'm now 50 years old. So I did testing, new leaf metabolic testing back in 2005 to 2012 on and off. And so I'm excited with all the current Oura Ring or Whoop and all this other stuff that we can do, and all this information we have nowadays compared to back in the day when I used to do it, that we can really experiment with metabolic testing to figure out where you're burning the most fat and what stack pre-workout, post-workout is going to really help you.
That way, right away, that what works specifically for you, that that is personalized. And you can run with it. Yeah.
So I'll keep you posted. And what conferences are you guys going to be at anything this year, 2022?
So we will be presenting our data on cognitive and physical performance with the Special Command with DOD. We'll be presenting a Metabolic Health Summit first weekend of May in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And our CEO, Michael Brand, is also presenting Ketone and Brain in KetoCon in Austin in July.
I'll be there. I can't make this Metabolic Health Summit, sadly, because I'm going to Paleo Effects and I'm speaking on the low carb cruise the week after. It's like, hey, really want to do that one, but you can't do all of them.
I'll be speaking at Metabolic Health Summit. We'll be presenting the $6 million grant that we got from the Department of Defense, looking at how to use ketones in hypoxia and high altitude, how to make sure that their cognitive function sort of maintains and improve.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, I look forward to seeing all that information out there. I'll have to watch the recordings from Metabolic Health Summit, but I look forward to seeing you guys at KetoCon, so I'll be there.
Yeah, if I'm going to be there, I'll look forward to meet you in person. We got our latest peer-reviewed paper, TBI, traumatic brain injury and exogenous ketone, approved and accepted for publication. It should be out in 2-3 weeks, so I'll send a copy to you as well.
Yeah, I'll put all the research in the show notes, and I am speaking at low carb or KetoCon on the low carb athlete fueling and training and performing tips. So maybe I'll have to incorporate some of this information in there by the time we get there in July. So I'll have some data to share myself. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, no, I would love to listen to that as well. So
okay, good deal. So thanks for your time, Latt, and we'll see you soon at conferences.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.